Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. So today's video, there's going to have been a massive influx of new managers coming into the platform. Flint Division's just been added. We're about to switch over to the new era, which I'm really excited to see what all the players are looking like. What I wanted to cover today was how to build your squad composition, how to fill out your club with the right number of players, thinking methodically about what you need to fulfill, giving yourself some tactical flexibility, and how you go about, as you can see loads of people playing friendlies, how you find how to run a friendly, because you can do that within your club. So if I just head over to one in particular, you can do this through here. You can do a play a friendly match or find a match. I would highly encourage you to do find a match and select specific opponents. I'm going to go through how to select the opponent, who you should be looking for, and how to do those tactical tweaks as you're going through. So let's get straight into it. Hey guys, just a quick introduction to the video. If you are enjoying today's content and you'd like to see more, please consider subscribing to the channel, like the video, comment if you've got any questions or you've got any responses to the video. I'm looking to grow the channel as much as possible, reach as many people as I can, posting at least once a week, often more. Thanks for tuning into this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers guys. I am going to start out with the Peacocks because I've just finished about the 8th rendition of putting my squad together and planning it all out. Moving into the Ice Division, it should be a very, very strong squad. Me and spreadsheets, you know what I'm like guys, I have been mapping this out consistently over the last week or so, working out who's going into what squad. Spoiler alert, I have now got a 4th club, but I'll cover that in another video. I worked out, okay, who is going into what squad. I tracked to see what the best 16 average is of the squad composition I've put together. If you aren't aware, do go ahead and have another look at the white paper, because it does elicit there the training penalties that you'll get from there. So it is worth paying in mind if you want to see that good progression for your players. I think the first thing starts out with making sure your training penalties are as limited as possible. So it's talking about match rating here, but if we go to the training one, here you go. So it gives you the player overall difference against the best 16 average of your squad. So have a look into this so you can get a bit of an idea. I'm looking for hopefully nothing more than a 6 max. I ideally want it to be less than that. As you might see here, my top rated player sitting at 73, the best 16 average there sitting at almost 68. It's not quite where I want it to be for a training average. However, going into the season, I want to get this team promoted, so I'm willing to take that hit. But the majority of these players are going to be fine for training conditions. I've done the same for the reserve squad, as you can see, within 3, perfect. And then for my White Rose Peacocks, my Leeds license, I've done the same sort of thing. I have overstacked over here at the top because I wanted to bring that training average up. I want to solidify the quality of my squad in there. I have no idea how competitive it will be. And equally, once we do get the leagues assigned, I think we'll find out probably Monday, because you've got to register. How long have you got to register now? 2 days and 18 hours from this point in the video, so it does run up till Sunday. You need to get your teams registered though, and then we'll find out which leagues you're dispersed into. You can then start scouting your opponents and seeing how strong you are in comparison to your opponents. Now, once you've got an idea of how strong your team is in comparison to all your oppositions there's a lot more that goes into being successful on Play MFL. You might have the strongest squad. It doesn't mean automatically you're going to win. You need to be thinking about, in terms of squad composition, how many players you've got, have you got enough rotation? Ideally, rotation for many different positions. Last season, I went in with about 22 players per squad, so I had a full, fresh starting 11 every game if I wanted to do that. I kind of hit myself a little bit with progression in terms of match ratings and or the number of games players were playing, so much so that my goalkeeper actually had the best average rating in the league, but he didn't hit the threshold for the amount of games required over the course of the league season. I think it's something like 15 out of the 22 games or something he needed to play, and he ended up playing 14 because I heavily pulled him back into the starting 11 for the cup games because I wanted to do well in the cup, and I didn't field him against lesser oppositions, as it were. I put my rotation goalkeeper in, and as a result, he didn't get hit as many games as on average as he needed to. I mean, going back over to the white paper, here we go. it does talk about player management and player development, and talking about the amount of games they need to play, and the match XP and how it starts to drop over time. So he needs to be playing, here we go, in terms of player importance, 80% of games you're going to be getting that 100% base, 108% base match XP. Important player, they're going to get 100%, so that's 80% of games. But most of my team fell in this threshold. They were at the 50% mark, which I just didn't. I was so focused on fatigue, rotation, making sure I had a fresh squad. I really wanted to get out of Spark. That realistically hampered the progression of some of my players. So I'm trying to address that this season. This season, I've got most squads. I've got about 3 very competitive strikers. In this case, I've got 4 because these 2 guys can play cam and striker equally well. But I'm looking to, in an ideal sense, have 3 similar rated sort of strikers. We've got Maya here at 63, Borg at 62, and Leal at 61. And I'll rotate one of the strikers out every single match. So they'll get plenty of game time, and they're not going to have a massive amount of downtime. And I want to be hitting the 80% of matches featured in, so they get as much development as possible. As I said before, you do want to have rotation options. Ideally, with the squad composition of 20, you want to have players who can play numerous positions. Boschinek here is a very good right back, sitting at 66, but he also goes up in rating if I play him at a centre back. So I've got options there. Again, he can also a bit more tactical familiarity in a few different roles, giving me lots of flexibility. I like my centre mids to be able to play CDM and CM because they're the most 2 commonly used positions for my midfielders. I like to have the options of cams. For the wingers, I like wingers to be able to play both sides. So I've got a left mid, I've got a right mid, and I've got someone who can play left and right mid. And again, there'll be that rotation similar to the strikers, so everyone's getting loads of base match XP. Now, if you're watching the video and you happen to be brand new to MFL, first of all, welcome. It's a fantastic community. Get yourself involved. If you are going to sign up, however, make sure you use a referral code, because once you've made your first minimum $25 spend, you will receive that 1 additional common player. If it happens to be a young player in particular, it can be very valuable, or potentially a really good potential overall player if under the right conditions. Any person's referral code you use, they'll get a free player. Mine will be in the link in today's description, but if you don't use mine, make sure you use someone else's so you aren't missing out. Good luck in building your agencies. Feel free to get in touch if you've got any questions. Now back to the video. So, picking up where I left off, what I tried to make sure that there was enough rotation for each and every position. As a sort of a base, you want to have an idea of maybe what type of tactic you want to play. I personally would jump in and have a bit of a look at, okay, what tactics am I interested in? Just clear all these for the moment. No, clear that. There we go. Have a look through and see, okay, which one do you think you might favour? What style of play you might want to go for? And set that out, bearing in mind who you've got in your agency, that you can fulfil those positions. And then start playing out with that base formation. I personally favour the 3-5-2, as you'll see it for all the squads. I've got a 3-5-2 composition. I've then got a base 4-4-2. It's solid, it can be defensive, and it can just keep the opponents out while creating enough opportunities for yourself. And I did use it well last season in the Stone Division. I also had in mind, okay, say I wanted with this squad, it can do a 4-4-2, it can do a 3-5-2B, it can also perform the 3-5-2. I've got a formation set up for that. I've also got it in my locker that I can move to a 4-3-3, a 4-2-3-1. I've got so many options because a lot of my players, as you'll notice, play numerous positions. If you've got that, it's a real advantage. If you haven't, not the end of the world. Work out how much you can potentially provide yourself with a bit of tactical flexibility. The next thing I do when you're doing all this is I grabbed this from last season from MFL Manager online. I grabbed, okay, what was the average, best 16 average per league, and whereabouts they're sat. So if I look at Spark first and foremost, actually no, let's go for Ice because I'm talking about the Peacocks. That's my best 16 average, sitting at almost 68. The top 75% was 63.42 above, 66.38 for the top 50, and top 25 was 68.95. So I should have a pretty competitive Ice team. That's what I'm looking for. And I had the same idea here with the reserves. It's sitting at almost 60.5. Here, again, I'm probably in this threshold within the top 20 to 30, 35% threshold. That's what I'm looking for. We don't know yet what leagues you're going into. If you potentially might have the same teams you had in your league last season, if you played last season, obviously taking into account any promotions or relegations, but there's lots of factors that go into that, so that's not dead set. So once we have got the leagues, I am going to scout all of my opponents and all my leagues and work out, okay, how strong am I in comparison to my opponents, because that might dictate that I might move a couple of contracts up or down. Say, for example, my Peacocks FC team are just miles ahead of everyone else in my league. I might consider, with my main highest overall striker here, Huertas, I might look into potentially not playing him in ice to stifle his development, because he's already going to be having that training penalty. I might be looking for a loan and looking to do something about that, but those are considerations for another time. So you've got a tactic set up. Let's get one loaded up. None of my presets are there. Are we going to have any presets from last season? Come on. MFL, it's taken a long time, but I might let them off. Here we go, we've got a few ones here because I was sort of working out what works rather well against different teams. Let's load in the first team one so I know everything's set up here and I've got this tactic set up. What I would then do is I'm just going to throw a few players in, super quick so you've got an idea. Put Carr in, we'll put Prazak in, we'll put Id in there, and Huertas in there. That'll do for the time being. Yeah, that'll do for the time being. But down here it tells me, okay, that's the total overall of my squad. So I know now how strong this particular starting 11 is. I save it, and then I can, next time I go into a friendly, I'll be able to test that formation. As a default tactic, so I'm loading this in as my default. This is how you'd swap things around. I've not selected a particular match, not that I can, but this is how you test even during the course of the season. Once you've done that, so it's taken a while, but I know they're doing all the new era rollover stuff, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I know my squad's average overall is sitting at 751. I want to be playing opposition who are maybe 10 less, 10 more, maybe 20 more in terms of strength, so I want to find those sorts of opponents. This is something I'll talk about momentarily, but let me go back to over here. You want to make your way over to MFL Coach /MFL system, the MFL Coach part in particular. I'll have a link to their site down below in the description. In here, it lists all the friendlies that have been taking place because they track all this, and it's such a useful tool, especially if you know you're going up against a specific opponent playing a specific formation. I did a lot of this for the playoffs. I knew, for example, in the playoffs, my opponent was playing a 4-3-3 defensive, and I knew roughly what their overall was. But for this purposes, if we go back to here, 7-5-1. So I'm going to go in 7-5-0, and the max overall, I don't know, 7-7-0. And let it run. What it'll do now, it'll crawl using those filters for teams who are playing those sorts of formations. So here, Rocky Mountain Cougars, 7-6-9, so almost 20 better overall, but they played the 4-3-3 defend. You've got Huracan Cordoba, 7-5-9 with a 4-3-3 defend. I know those are teams that I might want to go play friendlies against. You can only play one within 5 minutes of each other. I roughly find if you play on just highlights, not extended highlights, once you're sort of halfway through your second half, you can jump back over to another tab and load up another friendly, and it usually lets you back in there as long as the game hasn't been dead and there's been no highlights. So you can have almost a bit of overlap and you can track how things are performing. So let's go for the Rocky Mountain Cougars. I've got a team set up. I go to click to find a match and I type them in here, Rocky Mountain Cougars, and it'll start looking for them. Now you can do random, but I want to control the strength of my opposition so I can get a rough idea of how well my tactics are performing against similar strength opposition. If I'm going to end up playing, if I go back on here and I ended up playing Sankak FC, almost 50 overall better than mine, am I going to potentially glean a lot from that? Without knowing my opponents in my league, probably not. I want to keep it as close in terms of overall to my team so I can get a real play in here. So here we go, Rocky Mountain Cougars. And when you're ready to give it a whirl and play your friendly, you click play. Not going to do that now because it looks like the site's going to fall to pieces if we keep making requests. But that's how you test it. And then rinse and repeat. It is a repetition piece. I won't stick to one game, naturally testing your formation. I would try numerous different opponents, numerous different formations, What might be, going back to the piece that I was going to mention earlier here, so on MFL Coach again, they've got a formation meta. It shows you, so let's choose 3-5-2-B. What was the success rate against all these corresponding formations up here? If I click on one, it'll also give you a breakdown. As you can see, the sample size was only 15 games in this case. Not a lot to glean from it, but let's choose another one. Here we go, 41%, but they've got 288 games. So the 3-5-2 versus the 3-5-2, this is what the average worked out at. I'd be looking at here, 3-5-2-B, and looking for success rate of around the 50% mark. So you know it's on a knife edge really of how that one performs. Low sample size, so I probably wouldn't do that, but let's just pretend it wasn't. 4-3-1-2, I would then go back to the opponent finder, 4-3-1-2, rough similar overall, and rinse and repeat. 'Cause you know roughly that the outcome on average, based on those averages, was fairly similar in terms of successes and stuff. So it's not a formation versus strength of formation piece, it's more of a tactical fine-tunement that you can do. And that's how I'd look to do lots of tactical testing. I would keep things fairly straightforward to begin with. I wouldn't overcomplicate it. You can go to extremes. People have got different ideas of what works, but I would first of all advocate that you stay balanced with everything, both in possession and out of possession. By all means, tweak these to a certain extent. Do not overcomplicate your individual instructions. Just have an idea of what you want them to do. I've tested having very complex instructions. I even tested AI helping out with this, and it absolutely torpedoed how the formation that have been working in the same setup all season. I tested with more complex individual instructions, and of a sample size of about 20 games, I think I won one, and I even reconfigured the strength of opposition I was playing against to make them 20 to 30 less in terms of strength, and I was still coming out on the losing end more often than I wasn't, because there was just too much. There was way too much and too restrictive. So I'd pick up to 3 is where I personally feel it has the most advantageous outcome. Up to 3 instructions on an individual player, playing to their particular strength. So if I go for the cam formation here, I had a player called Fernandez in this position last season. He was playing in Spark. He's a very competitive player for Spark. He's about 62 rated. Here we are. Matthias Fernandez, he goes up +1 at a cam, but he had the really high shooting. His dribbling was quite effective, and I was happy to take risk, and he was playing that pocket, and I was getting him to get forward. So if I go back to the individual instruction, I had him taking more long shots. He was scoring a lot of long shots last season. I was encouraging him to be risky. I suppose the Colts out on that one because he only had 56 passing, but given the strength of my opposition, I turned that on and off based on how strong the opponent was, and I had that position freedom being low, because more often than not I was playing against 2 defenders, my strikers were occupier, and he was constantly getting beyond the defensive line and or squaring it out playing that killer ball, and it worked really, really well. So what I suggest you do if you are brand new to this and you're looking to build your squad, or you've started building a squad and you're trying to work out, okay, what formation I'm going to play and I want to test it and I want to work things out, the main takeaways: make sure you put together a very rough formation as to what you want to play and put the players in there and find out that total overall that you're getting for your strongest team. Keep your instructions simple to begin with and slowly tweak. How many friendlies should you run? Some people believe in this process of trial and testing, others don't. I advocate a minimum of 10 games, roughly 5 with no tactical tweaks, especially if you are playing, say, 5 different teams in different formations, but all the same strength with yours, and just see the match report afterwards to give you a bit of a breakdown of how well it performed. If I go to friendlies, because that's probably going to be a bit more telling, here we go. Going to this one here, you can obviously look at the face stats here. Does that tell the full picture? Arguably not. I'd go into the report and get a quick breakdown, particularly of my team is what I'm interested in. I want to look at the individual breakdown, like how the pass successes, the shot successes. As you can see here with Fernandez, he was getting 5 out of 7 long shots on target. He ended up with 4 goals, okay, fair enough, but his pass completion rate was not the highest because it was a similar strength team, and I was testing whether to turn it on and off based on the team I was going to play. So if you are looking for opponents to play against, you can obviously network on Discord. asked opponents that I'm looking to try and play against this sort of strength team, playing this formation, would you be up for trialling this? I know some of my friends and I that have met on this platform now, and we're chatting on Discord. We're planning to do exactly that once we've got everything set up. That's what I would do, but honestly the biggest takeaway is just do not try and overcomplicate things. I would look at the strength of the players you've got in your positions. For example, here I was playing Simon on the left wing last season. He's not got the highest pace. He's a bit of an all-rounder. I got him to be a workhorse. I got him to get back and defend, keep it simple, and just do the basics really well. Holt was a fairly similar sort of makeup of player, so I got him to do a similar thing. So because I had fairly solid, dependable wingers, it allowed my cam to be that bit more expressive. I got my CDMs to keep it really simple, constantly recycling the ball. And with my centre-backs, I didn't want them doing anything too complicated, played it simple. Very conservative passing risks. It worked because they were constantly giving the ball to my CDMs or the wingers when they were dropping back in. We were getting round opponents quite quickly and transitioning into attack. It is effective. The 4-4-2 is a different beast. It's not on this one. I'll have to find it on one of my other teams. But the 4-4-2 is a different beast. It was about, in particular for me, making this work. It was making sure your press was effective. It was about making sure that one of your CMs was more defensive than the other. I think I even had one of my other centre mid that was allowed to go forward just with no instructions. Just kept it super simple. And the left and the right back, given the strength of the team that I had and how good they were, the wingers were allowed to be a bit more expressive, but as a result, the full-backs weren't. They had to stay where they were, keep it simple, and make sure they gave the ball to the centre mids or their corresponding winger and keep it simple. And I had my strikers on pressing because that's what was doing the justice. Because I was finding most of my opponents were trying to play out of the back, and given the quality of the centre-backs at the division that we're at in Stone and how good their passing was or their dribbling was, my strikers were disrupting that, and we were breaking the play. Or there was a quick, they were being pressed, they'd make a pass and it would get picked up in the midfield and we're straight on them to the again. So we weren't letting them get out. It's not infallible. I think there's going to be a lot of variance with every engine that we do, and to be honest, I love the chaos. I think that's the best part of this. So if you've got any questions about tactic testing and getting your squad set up or your squad composition, or even if you're looking for players to help fill out your squads, get in touch, get on Twitter, get on Discord and start chatting to managers to start working all this out, because it does pay dividends. Good luck getting set up for Season 7. Do not forget to register your clubs in preparation for Season 7, because you can register late, but there is a penalty of, I don't know how many points it is, I think it's 1 point per match day that you've missed. So get your players in there, make sure you've got rotation, and good luck for the start of the season, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.